All right. I think everything's working. Yep. All right. This is part one of the commentary for Spirit Blade: A World of Shadows.
We gotta leave for the party soon. Grandpa's told you the whole story a million times.
Now I gotta warn you that this might actually ruin the project for you a little bit. So I'm gonna be picking apart some of the flaws that I see in it and just spoiling how some things were made, or you know. So it may make things a little bit mechanical for you the next time you listen. So if you're open to that risk, then you're welcome to stay with me.
If it does, then we'll just share that moment.
The purpose of these bookends here, with the, and I'm assuming you've listened to the entire project. You definitely want to do that before, you know, listening to me talk about it.
I want to see them too.
Was to bring closure to Merrick, having this prologue and epilogue with old Merrick to bring closure to him, because the main story doesn't take place around the time that he's destined to die.
Well, I said I needed April 11th, and that's today, so where is it?
This is me playing Dari in the background. The idea was just kind of an irresponsible younger brother of some kind. I removed the reference to songs in the Legacy Edition, but there's kind of some meta humor here that, you know, this was originally written assuming that there would be no Legacy Editions, and so this was my way of telling the audience, well, sorry folks, you're kind of stuck with these songs. So I enjoy imagining Old Man Merrick singing "Thus soon does up the cross," you know, while he's telling these stories to his granddaughter. The granddaughter is played by Sydney Hessen. That's the daughter of Randy Hessen, who plays Vincent Kraft.
Vincent left, and you and Rand were talking about finding the
There is on the phone this reference to April 11th, as the daughter was talking to Dari on the phone, and that's the prophesied date of Merrick's death, as has been established in the trilogy up to this point. Logically, they would have planned a party before April 11th, the day he was going to die, because who knows when during that day he's going to die. They wouldn't want him to miss the party, but I've been saying April 11th through the whole trilogy, and I knew that would be kind of like the date that would trigger memories and thoughts of his prophecy, so I wanted to help the audience just a little bit remember that callback and the significance of that.
Had the world convinced that they were peaceful alien ambassadors.
Kristen Self is back as the computer. We heard her just a little bit ago when the phone was ringing. And she's the default voice for all computers, like a standard operating system kind of thing. Though you'd think they would have changed it by this point, but maybe it's retro.
Mess inside. Out of his
I didn't want to put on a grandpa voice. I waited for the perfect cold, almost a year, and also tried not to move my mouth very much as I recorded, just to have this kind of lethargic kind of feel. I love the result. It to my ear sounds a little bit like Edward James Olmos on Battlestar Galactica, especially when the voice kind of breaks and cuts out.
Desert base, and bringing our number to almost 400 men for a few months.
There's a point in this opening kind of monologue where
and then all at once,
Old Man Merrick uses the phrase the Shadow wanted to make, you know, humanity a mockery of divine purpose. So that's number one. You can start to count. Mockery was for some reason like my favorite word in this script, and I didn't notice it until it was too late to go back and make a bunch of changes and stuff. Writing is not my strength. This could be the last self-written from scratch audio drama. Maybe one more at some point. Current plans are just to do adaptations of pre-existing work going forward. When I get negative feedback, it usually has some kind of connection to the writing, so I don't have time to be a master of everything, so I figured taking my writing out of the equation for the most part seems like a good way to go. This is Randy Hessen, Vincent Kraft doing the opening credits, and once again I tried to use sound effects to create the feeling of a big budget opening title sequence from a summer movie, not because I think our names are worthy of having explosions surrounding them, but just because I wanted to create immediately that feel of this big cinematic type of experience. Brittany Stevens, who was mentioned in the credits, took over for Ebony in Dark Ritual, but for several reasons, which I talk about in one of our YouTube videos at youtube.com/spiritbladevideos, I wanted to bring Holly back as the primary voice for Ebony. And between voicing Ebony and Aya, she's really prominent in this, maybe as much or more so than Salos or Vincent. I haven't actually counted the lines. I felt like I wrote her best in this installment, and she also really rose to the challenge and responded to direction well. So we really wanted Ebony to work well, and I think the character easily works better in the final product here than it ever has before. Craig Herman Jr. played David in Spirit Blade: Dark Ritual, and he recorded for that in 2007, I think. He is now in his early 20s. Listen.
Why couldn't you save me, Vincent?
So that line was recorded when he was recording for Dark Ritual, because I knew at that time I would want one or more haunting flashback sequences for Vincent in part 3 of this trilogy, and that I'd want one of them to end with David saying, "Why couldn't you save me, Vincent?" You know, so like this sequence, I had this in mind even then. So I actually had Craig record that line during Dark Ritual production, and I've just been quietly treasuring it all these years ever since.
Hey, here to relieve you.
It's Nolan Pavlich. You'll hear him in several kind of supporting lines all over the place. Carrie Ellis is the senior security guard here. A great character voice. This is the only scene we have him in, but he was such a great fit for this. It's so awesome when you can get great voices, even for these smaller, just like one-off kind of roles. Really happy with that.
Something just triggered the trajectory.
And like I said, Nolan you'll hear more of later in other scenes.
On a direct course for the building.
Mr. Falcor have a transport bringing him in tonight?
No, he's already in the penthouse office. And this thing is too small and too
The
fast.
upcoming impact here
Shock division.
is a bit like the ground impact when Rand... right there. When Rand fell from the sky in Dark Ritual, you know, it's a low, distant impact followed by a delayed vibration hitting the room, and it gives a sense of how huge the impact was on the building. You know, big explosions can only do so much for you. Sometimes you have to go smaller and more subtle to give a sense of something bigger. I made a whole YouTube video about the making of Vincent's attack. It's so layered with effects, and there's so many tracks in that. It's insane. That's me growling with a pitched-down voice as the troop commander. I realized too late that I didn't have a performance that would work there from other actors because this commander gets killed, and so he can't appear in later scenes. And helmets can cover that a bit, but the troop commanders don't ever wear helmets, so I needed a voice that would be uncovered and wouldn't appear later on, and so hopefully my voice pitched down without any other effects on it isn't too obvious. The trooper that was checking the door there is John Wilkerson, who headed up our Thunderclap campaign and now also runs social media for Spirit Blade Productions as a volunteer, so thank you very, very much, John. Man, there's so much here. Dave Curry was the commander and Dr. West in Spirit Blade 1, and he actually says "move in" at one point, and then sees a trooper get killed, which is actually also his voice, and then says "fall back." And I don't know if that mental visual is picked up on by listeners, but when I realized that I could create this moment of him saying "move in," fall back, you know, I thought that was kind of a funny idea. These trooper deaths almost happened to the beat. I wanted to, in some points, I wanted to convey this as just effortless, like a dance for Vincent, just making people explode like frickin' Dr. Manhattan in a wet, messy splat, you know.
For you, something much worse.
I also, when he was whooshing around, was trying to convey the idea that he's whooshing somewhere else, and then the shots go where he just once was. And so if you listen carefully, there's a lot I'm trying to do to paint the picture for you there, but you can easily just kind of like let it go in one ear and out the other too. That rookie trooper there was Mark Pennington. You're going to hear him more later on. He's the growling Sogtafi in the Liberation. He's also plays Corrigan much later on in the project, and he's been a gaming buddy in high school. We goof around and do voices as we game, so we had a nice, fun shorthand while recording. Having Jesse Tessier back to play Claudius and the Nephilim was so freaking cool. We'd been out of touch for a while, and I wasn't sure that it would work, but he was really quick to say yes, and which was so surprising and awesome. It was great to give closure to this kind of dangling plot thread of a clone of Claudius being left behind to run Atlantis for the Shadow, which was mentioned briefly at the end of Spirit Blade 1. Throughout this scene, Vincent is slowly inching across to Claudius. Claudius even steps back at one point, and I tried to indicate he's walking backwards by having something spill and rattle nearby. There's two versions of the song in the background. This score version required an entirely new section, more subdued and just kind of playing the background here, so that's what this is playing right now. Balancing music to dialogue, to sound effects, was really challenging in this whole scene. I had to choose so carefully what to focus in on. I mean, elements fade in and out so fast in some cases as I rapidly switch from emphasizing music to effects in less than a single second in some cases. Lots of detail work that isn't noticed unless you fail to do it, in which case it's all just a bunch of competing white noise.
In both worlds, before your boss gave me the advanced training course.
There's the little spill there that's trying to indicate that he's kind of like not looking where he's going as he's backing away from Vincent.
Much more satisfying somehow. Don't do that, dog. I know this doesn't really hurt you. You won't tell me what I want, so just listen to the sound of my blade going into you. That's the sound of your tool being destroyed.
Randy,
That's the sound of
Randy
it
had
all
fun with that
coming
line.
to an end. Well, that's fine. Keep pretending you're pain and play that part to the end. You've got a job to do, and so do I. Just see if you can stay in that body long enough so you can tell the council about this next part. I think they'll be interested.
That freeze is Rich Phillips, a friend of mine from church, and then this
ran in
fall
the
back, go,
wrong
go, go is me
direction.
pitched up with the helmet effect on top. I also really had a hard time balancing volume in the project overall, especially in the special edition with the songs here. I had to save a little bit of my maximum volume levels for explosive moments, like near the climax, but I didn't want the songs to sound weak and underpowered. And I also didn't want people having to adjust their volume knob a bunch, so I'm still not confident that it's as good as it could be. I conceived a song concept about justice, something about blood crying out, early in 2010 for this project. I knew I wanted justice to be a theme in A World of Shadows, so maybe some kind of like angry, screaming, hard rock type of sound, but I don't have the voice for that kind of vocal, so I abandoned a lot of the theme, but the tone, what I wanted to go for was, I think, retained in Day of Wrath. I wanted to use Mozart's Dies Irae because the voices... But with voices only, like it is here, with a new electronic industrial track beneath it, which means I would need to... I couldn't just buy a track of it, a licensed track of it. I would have to recreate the choir separate from the instrument. So Joanna Banta, a fellow singer and a friend in college, she was in my studio, a fellow vocal major in college, once told me on the way to a choir rehearsal that she wanted to sing backup for me someday when I'm a Christian recording artist. And I changed direction away from doing that to instead doing my work with Spirit Blade Productions. But I thought I'd try to cash in on that offer, and she was totally game and surprised me by remembering that little exchange that we had, which I assumed she would have forgotten all about. So she came and sang both alto and soprano on this multiple times with different voice types. I'd tell her to imitate different sounds and stuff so that combined they'd sound like a full choir section. And Mike Tully, who plays Ran, also a fellow vocal major in college, recorded all the bass section voices, and I did the same for the tenor section. The robot voice singing verses is me. Originally we had Randy record that, but then I realized I didn't direct him the right way in order to make the diction and vowels clear enough, so rather than bring him in just to do that, because he wouldn't be recognized anyway, I did it myself. I took some lyrics from Dies Irae and chanted them using multiple voice layers during parts of this. So when you hear like this kind of vocal chanting, those are lyrics from Dies Irae. And I made a mistake at one point while editing that put the chant off on my intended beat pattern, and I found that, I actually kind of like that, so I kept it that way. I don't know if we passed it yet. I'll try to point it out when we get to it if we haven't already. I didn't mix the choral voices the way you would for an actual performance, a proper performance of Mozart's Dies Irae, in which dynamically, the parts take turns dominating the sounds, passing the melody off to each other. I took things much closer to an even mix of all four parts because it just sounded more full, like a choir in a film score would. And I'm already butchering the song with an all new, electronic track under it. So I figured, why not? I'm just do what I want. So thank you, Mozart and public domain laws. Oh, you know what? The chanting, now I'm wondering... The chanting might have been only in the underscore version. Quantus tremor es futurus. That might have just been in the scene version when it's playing under his conversation with... I can't remember now. Spend so much time on this stuff, it's so much a part of my world, and then, you do it, you put it out there, and it's on to the next thing. It's already hard for me to remember some things. But anyway, thank you very much for listening. Stay tuned. There'll be more in part 2 of the commentary for Spirit Blade: A World of Shadows. Thanks. Bye-bye.